I'm Thorin, also known as the Esports Historian, and I am here exclusively for Esportsbet, the industry's leading crypto odds matrix, to give you my analysis of the outright odds for IEM Katowice in CS2. Now, this is obviously the first big CS2 tournament. That's like a prestige event. We've had IEMs, we've had Blast, but this is like a proper stadium event, massive stakes. It's basically the first big event everyone wants to win and have on their resume. By the way, did you know they have a deposit bonus on this website that I think is an excellent one for this exact type of bet, which is obviously the risk-free first-time bet, where if you've never made a bet on Esportsbet before, you can make one. If you lose it, message the mod mail on Discord or the customer support on the website, and up to 100 USDT initial stake, they will refund your bet if you lose. The reason it's excellent for this feature is this is only about picking the winner of the tournament. So if you're right, you get whatever the multiplier and the odds are anyway, and if you lose, so you get anyone except the winner as the one that you bet on, then you can get your stake back and try again in the future, right? Now, if people don't know how you actually make an outright odds bet, the key thing is it's not the most obvious place on the website. So what you do is you log in, as usual, pick your currency, and then the key thing is that at the moment on the website, you're going to be on this esports because they've got a new redesign. They're like doing a whole bunch of changes to the site. At the moment, you've got to go to the old esports, which will bring up the old site, if you remember how that looked. And you go to the bottom and there you go, outright. There's 11 different ones there. This is going to be the one we're going to do, obviously. Let's move that over a second. We're obviously going to do this one. Intel Extreme Masters, Katowice, 2024 champion. Obviously, it's open for a bunch more days. By the time you see this, probably 4 days. So, by the way, little pro tip. I would normally do this potentially closer to Katowice, but since Blast runs right up until the Katowice play-ins begin, so won't be able to watch all these games and then do this analysis. Bear in mind, sometimes you might want to get in early if you think a team's going to be really good, but they haven't played yet in some of the Blast games or finished the Blast games, so the odds will be higher, whereas later, if they do well, the odds will go down when other people catch up. I'm just going to do this now and give you my analysis of the teams, and you figure out when you want to make the bets and when you want to pick it. So what happens is you go and you click on that, and then you'll see on the very right, there you go. There are all your teams you can pick from. They're all the eligible champions. And as usual, I always start at the top. So I'm going to start with Team Vitality. Now, the way that they have won the last two tournaments, Blast Fall and Blast World Final with Mezzi, has made it look like, I mean, the first tournament was like, Mezzi didn't really get going there. He was looking awesome at the second tournament. It looked fantastic. And the team in general, the key thing is this. Not only one, is Ziwu the best player in CS2 right now and is the player odds on to win the MVP if he just makes a final because of how bonkers his stats and performances. But it isn't the Ziwu show anymore. He plays awesome. This actually reminds me of Na'Vi 2021. He plays awesome, but then Spinks is routinely one of the best players in the server. You have Flames pulling out the odd map where he just goes crazy. Apex as an IGL seems like actually in CS2 it's suiting his style, this up-tempo style even more. And then Mezzi now has actually been somewhat integrated in the team. And look, he's no Magisk, but actually he's having some banger performances and he's looking like he hasn't subtracted anything from the team by being added. So yeah, this is the strongest team. Right now, they are the obvious odds-on favourite to win. The fact that they're only 2.38 just shows you that there's pressure. Obviously, Ziwu's never won a Katowice or a prestige event except the Blast Paris Major. So I think some of that's maybe a factor. It's still a newer lineup. It's still the first big event of CS2. So what's funny is normally you'd think this is actually be even lower. You'd think this maybe even be 1 point something. It's actually 2.38. So I actually think if you're a massive Vitality fan and you really believe in them, I think these are actually pretty good odds. I think this is pretty fair. Then similarly for FaZe, who obviously brought in Frozen. He didn't look like he had to do much at Blast World Finals. He looked better in some of the games already at Blast. I think actually he can be a team that can potentially take this squad to even potentially a slightly higher level. I thought they were very, very good. One of the best teams ever in CSGO, but sometimes Twists, especially in 2023, looked like he wasn't always activated and couldn't have the big performances. I think actually, if you look at the roles that Mouse used to have Frozen in when Carrigan was in Mouse, I think it makes a lot of sense that Frozen can actually be awesome and potentially better than Twists in the slam, which is saying a lot. So I actually think this team can be the number one team. So actually, 4.0 odds for FaZe, I also think are really good. People will know I'm a massive Carrigan fan. I believe in his style of play. So I actually think 4.0 odds, not bad there, actually. Obviously, obviously they were the team in the final of the Blasts, right? And if it wasn't, I mean, the first one, they had a better chance of winning. The one in the Blast fans, they got somewhat dusted off, but also it was an awesome performance by Ziwu, wasn't it? So I actually like that one, 4.0 odds. I think pretty fairly put in there. People will know it's been a topic we talked about on Hot Take Point Made, but yes, I do think Virtus Pro is a sleeper. They're like a really good dark horse for events like this. So I actually think 7.142 odds. That might be slightly too low. I'd maybe rather it was like 10 odds if I want to bet this one. I do think it's plausible they can win, but I also think that style actually makes winning tournaments hard. I think it's excellent for a War of Attrition style, drawing a match out and bringing a top team into a difficult scenario, making it not just a DM and about fragging, but to actually win enough series to win a tournament like Katowice. I mean, there's a reason why Jim hasn't won that many tournaments in his career. In my opinion, that style is a little bit difficult to make work all the time. You're making the opponent walk a tightrope, but you're walking a tightrope too with that saving style. And it does mean, in my opinion, sometimes you don't always activate how explosive the raw rifle strength within this team is, even though absolutely it's a team that I think actually has a lot of firepower. And there's a reason teams don't want to play them. So I don't mind those odds if you want the dark horse there. I don't think they'll win personally. Team Spirit, I actually think is badly priced. Even though they're obviously the hot ticket right now. Everyone's loving Donk. He looks like the next great rifler. They have Shiro already, I mean, is one of the next great AWPers, as he's proved for the last couple of years, a monster player. So you look at the basics, obviously Chopper's done well with a mixture of looser style callings and bringing in all these different talents. The problem I have is this. Donk's never played an event like this as a LAN. Shiro himself has never gone anywhere close to actually winning this LAN. And these are massive prestige events we're talking about. So I think 8.3, I think this is a trap. I would say stay away from this one. Yes, a team with Donk and Shiro, in theory, can go crazy against anyone and get a win. But are they going to win enough series to win the tournament with a bona fide rookie like Donk? And Shiro himself hasn't been fully integrated. I don't buy it. So I think actually it's way too low odds. I would want these odds to be like 15 or maybe even closer to 20. And then I would say as a crazy duck. Because remember, whoever you pick must just win the event. It's not good enough to do awesome and go to the final. Whether the finals for Spirit would be amazing. Even to make top 4 for Virtus Pro would be good. But that isn't enough for this factor. That's why, by the way, the risk-free bet's a good bonus to use on this particular one. So I actually think Spirit's ridiculously underpriced on this one. I don't like that at all. I would stay with. I think that is a trap one. I also think VP's a slight trap. Then we go to G2. Now look, as a dark horse, G2's an excellent dark horse to win the event. By the way, when you've got Nico and you've got Monacy, you already could in theory fluke a tournament win there. When you've got Hunter, now you've got a really solid core. You can do a lot right now. I'm not the biggest Huxley fan. I think Nex is aight. The problem I have is I do think losing JKS lost them some of the firepower, lost them some of the clutches won, and made them less dynamic. It's certainly the case that the teamwork might end up being strengthened by Nex. I could believe that as a connective part, a secondary caller. That's all great. My problem is at 10.0, like I don't hate that. I do think they are one of my better teams to win, but it's just that the lack of JKS. I mean, I thought everyone had to go right when they had JKS to win these tournaments. So are they really going to do it without? 10 is maybe slightly too low for me. Again, for this one, I would maybe, I think, want 12 or 13, I think is more fair. But I also don't hate 10. I don't think that's at like the bottom end of what I think is a reasonable range for G2. Then for Cloud9, what's so bizarre is the parity on these numbers. Because again, Cloud9's a team on paper. Yes, they have the AWP situation to still figure out. But you look at the raw strength of the riflers. Sure, they should be a dark horse. They really should be a team that could actually out of nowhere just win the event. But at 11.111, that's not what I'm as big a fan of. Now, with Na'Vi, you'll know from the last couple of videos, I've told you, wow, I think this Na'Vi price is great. If everything comes together, they really could be a dark horse that wins. Here's the point. I don't think Na'Vi has better chances than G2 to win, but their odds are 14.28, whereas G2's odds are 10. So here's the thing. If you've been watching Blast, now you'll see why I've kept doubling down on Na'Vi. Because to me, it's inevitable Wonderful will get integrated. Bit's already good. They're figuring out the IMGL thing, and Alexi B looks like he's calling well in general anyway and starting to fit more and more Blade system. The difference was they were close to almost doing something at the Blasts. They actually have now, at the Blast this year, the Spring Group started to do something. They've actually started to show something. They have beaten G2. They have beaten Call. These were teams that were in the mix in CS2. So I think, quite frankly, actually a 14.285, I actually like that. I think I'm going to do the classic. I'm going to take this one. I'm going to actually say I'll put 100 there. and we'll say, yes, I'm taking a dark horse, but I like the odds for the dark horse. Then as you go down, this is a trap. Mouse at 14.285. Now, listen, if they had Frozen, those would be a really nice set of priced odds. They actually are a team that can make the playoffs, have a nice run and do the semis. And if they can get the semis, and if you think some of the teams they've beaten in the last few months when they had Frozen, they could win the event. The problem is they don't have Frozen anymore. There's the whole thing where, like, the team, there's no Frozen replacement that you can get right now. You've got to see how the new lineup works out. You've obviously got the silly situation where I actually think a lot of people are going to overrate the other players because of how well the lineup played when they had Frozen. Like, Torji can be really good. He could be the MVP of this tournament if they have an awesome run. Zershin can be a massive X factor. Jimvat, he just played really awesome at that Pro League and then played well in other tournaments. He's not going to be able to give you what you've lost when you lost out on Frozen. And Brolan is a solid player with skills, but I've got to see that it works in a national lineup. I'm not just going to say that the guy from 2019 in Fnatic speaking Swedish is here. He hasn't got Flusher and Golden and JW and these people around and Crims. He's playing with a totally different set of players, and Shui apparently has structure and a different system. So we'll wait and see on that one. I certainly think they're a team that can be interesting, but I think 14.28 is way too low. I would want this one like 25 for Mouse. Then we go to Col. This is a trap as well. Notice on this one, I'm actually telling you a lot of people not to bet. I think do not bet complexity here. Elige has been mega, by the way. Go check his stats for the time of CS2, and he's on some bonkers rating and stats, and everything looks awesome. And yet, aside from the first tournaments where they really could have won, they have had diminishing results as a team. They are falling off, and the other players are not maintaining or showing an increased level of play like you would have hoped. Halzuk is not a good enough AWPer. Floppy's just aight. The team just doesn't have enough. They need another star rifler or a better AWPer, in my opinion. Elige doing it hasn't been enough, and if he ever has a bad run, by the way, you just toast. You have no chance whatsoever. So I think 18.8, again, that's too low for me. I want at least 25, maybe 30, 35 for this, because I just don't think complexity can win. Can you really imagine in CS2 with this lineup, like Elige is either going to play better or Halzuk's going out the best AWPers in the world, or Floppy's going to just frag out and JT's going to be leading this lineup to, here are your IEM Katowice champions 2024 and CS. Give me a break. It isn't happening, is it? By the way, did you know Esportsbet still has the classic first time deposit bonus of 50% up to 100 USDT? After them, we go down and we have Monty. Now, here's what's funny. Yes, the odds are still quite low, but actually, if you were going to pick from the teams that are around the level of Mouse, Complexity, Monty, Astral, tell you what, Monty's not a terrible one. I don't think because of the lack of experience and the fact that, like, obviously this is a team where, if you didn't know, behind the scenes, people have tried to pick this squad apart a bunch of times. I heard the buyouts are crazy or they just don't want to sell people. I just don't believe they can win the event. I do think they can be mega upset merchants. There's a world where this team could be in top 6, by the way, and have upset a couple of big squads, like a Cloud9 of the world or a G2, or these are the sorts of teams that could lose to them. Yeah, there's a world. The problem is, can they win the event? No. So 18 odds, still not high enough for me. Now, here's what's going to surprise you. This is where you have my interest. Astralis 19.23. You know what? I'm going to do a baby bet on this. I'm going to do a little 25 on this. And the reason why is I actually think those are excellent odds, because on paper, this team can win this event. Now, I have no idea how can BlameF call, how are they going to make up, like, how is Stown going to find his best role in production with BlameF? What are you going to do in terms of Stair? Obviously very inexperienced. The whole Yabi thing, he looked awesome, but that was only when Cadian was there. He didn't look as good when he was in Copenhagen Flames, in my opinion, with Huxley. So you look at the team, look, there's a lot of questions, and there aren't many answers yet, but I'll tell you what, those 4 players, Yabi, Stown, BlameF, Device, that is a really, really tantalizing prospect. And already at the Blast, they've shown you hints, like with this Vitality win, that, hey, this could be a really exciting team. I mean, they could even trip over, fuck around and win some matches. That's how much firepower and potential star power is in this team. So actually, if you're going to do it, if you're going to pick a really big dark horse, there's a world where this team has already hit the ground running, and they might just be really strong out the gate. CS2 seems a lot more about fragging and just like individual play than it does for me. The old Astralis style of like control and slower paced and purer utilities and punish the opponent. It seems at the moment a lot more arcadey. So quite frankly, having star players seems like a great way to go. There's a lot of talent out there. So I actually think almost 20 odds. Yeah, I think actually this is a rare example of a 20-1 team that, like, it is plausible. When I said that thing about complexity and here are your champions, if someone said that, look, it'd be crazy for Stairs' career, and it would certainly like level Blame F's career up as an IGL to win Katowice. But hey, first of all, Huxley won Katowice, so it's not like it's the craziest prestigious tournament in that sense. And then secondly, actually you can imagine Device being the MVP of the tournament, Blame F doing massive fragging numbers, Yabi wins a bunch of clutches, Stown puts up like, the 8th best rating of the tournament, and Stair just does all right and doesn't die to it. And suddenly I could see you being deep in this tournament. So as a crazy outsider, actually almost 20-1 odds. Yeah, I like that. And then finally, if you go down, there's a whole bunch more, but obviously we're getting quite unrealistic that they're going to win. So then you go to Team Falcons. Now, I will say, I wouldn't hate this one if you want a dark horse. You might go, what are you talking about? Look at Blasto. Those are the first games they've played. I'm not too worried when they initially start with this team. They've got a different coach now. Obviously, it used to be Saw that worked with the Ents boys at this point. Now they've got Zodic has to integrate with Snappy, and then they have to figure out what they're going to do with Boros. But you look at the rest of the team, the Ents core, this is a team that there's a very good chance this could come into their first real full LAN and be really good and be one of the better teams. I actually think, again, I quite like the odds on this one too. Believe it or not, I actually think Astralis and Falcons, pretty nice cheeky little bet, so I wouldn't hate that one. And everyone's going to underestimate them and keep the odds nice and high because they haven't done that well at the beginning part of Blast, but that's just Blast. If you go and look, remember, like Heroic, who was in the semis of the Major, just lost the opening Blast game of 2023. The evil geniuses who just couldn't even buy a series win after that. So I don't put too much stock in Blast. Look, that's why even though I like Astralis, I don't say that guarantees they can win. I just think it shows a little bit of potential. We haven't seen the potential yet of Falcons, and there's no way they're going to be as bad as that first game. So I don't hate that one. Heroic, I would just say stay very far away from this one. I think this would be ridiculous. Remember, Heroic now has bought Nerd Cements, a really talented player. Don't know how he'll play without Snappy. They've got Nikados, the old Fnatic player. I actually think even though he looked like one of the better players in Flames, he's actually ended up not being that good since then. They bought Kixan, obviously from Apex, the in-game leader. People have hyped him. Let's see how he does in this particular case. And then they still got Shush and Tessus. It's not a bad lineup. It's all right. The problem is Nikados isn't quite good enough. I don't know how Nerds will play under this team. And then the other players were really good in one specific system. I think Shush could be solid. I think Tessus has got some skills. But how will they play into Kixan? How will Saw integrate them? I have no idea. There's too many questions on this one and not some obvious answers. So I actually think, even though they're all the way up with 25 odds, I wouldn't do this one. I think it's totally implausible to imagine this team can win the event. Then you go down, big, similarly silly one. I think that's not even vague. I'd have to be like 100-1 before I'm taking this one. There's no way Briggs win it, even though I do like people like Crimbo. Furia, you are having a laugh, except for that Elisa event in Finland. This team has been absolutely dire. So no, I'm not saying that's plausible at all. Apex, considering that 45... Look, here's the sad thing. I do like some of the players, but if this hype around Kixon is legit, well, he's just left, hasn't he? So I'm sorry, for now, I can't say this would be unconscionable. Eternal Fire have some skilled players, but when have they ever done anything? Ents themselves, remember, is essentially like a Polish team now, because remember, Glaive stayed, and they'd had Dicha, who obviously was in the previous lineup. Then what they did is, Hades, their old member, had been off in 9-9, and so they brought him and a bunch of his players basically over, and now they've got this like nearly all Polish team except Glaive, so the joke is it's a red and white flag team. There's no universe where this team's winning this event. The problem is, Dicha is good, but even he's had his problems at big events. Glaive hasn't done anything in a long, long time beyond the odd fluky little run, and that was when he had Device, by the way, or like fucking Config playing the best CS of his post-online era period, if you remember that Blast 4 final in 2021. This team can't do anything, and the odds need to be way crazier, in my opinion. Bet, well, you know what the name of that team is. BB team, let's just say it in no universe. I mean, spoiler, their sponsor isn't the one running the tournament. Anyway, you get the point on that one. The Mongols were a cool team when they were IHC, but do you believe in them now? 71, not really. Gamer Legion at 166. Look, if you were going to do any absolutely insane, like very unlikely, but it's not impossible. Actually, the game one ain't that bad. You know what, Snacks, he's done a good job so far. You've still got some decent players there. Look, you're not going to win the event, but the odds are insanely high compared to the others. Remember, we have teams I don't think have a chance to win, and they have like 13 odds or whatever. This one has 166. So again, don't bet it thinking like this is a good investment. No, do it as a crazy flyer for fun to have a little sweat if they make a run. M80, it's an NA team that nobody knows. There's no chance they're doing anything. Paloma, similarly, Rooster. Who gives a you-know-what about these teams? So I would say, to summarise, I don't mind a Vitality one. Odds are actually all right for that. I think FaZe is pretty good odds. Obviously, you have to believe that they're going to complete the transition with Frozen VP, I don't mind. Like, I think they can do it. I just think the odds are too low. I think Spirit is way too low, and I don't think they can win the event. I think G2 can win, but maybe odds are a little bit low. Depends how high you are on them. Cloud9, they can be a dark horse, but the odds are too low. Navi actually like these odds. I think they're fair. Mouse, remember, they don't have Frozen. Call, I'd say no on that one. I think they're way badly priced here. Monty, it's just that they can't win. Astralis, it's plausible. Team Falcons, hey, if you want to get silly, I don't think it's ridiculous they can make a deep run. Maybe they don't have the star player to be the MVP aside from some players, so maybe you could use that angle. But even so, 19 odds. You go down again. Yeah, the only other teams basically is if you want to do something ridiculous, just like a totally bonkers, like you're the biggest snacks fan ever and you want to do that. Aside from that, stick with some of those other ones or just go for the obvious favourites and pick the one you think will win. By the way, if you don't have any crypto to make bets and predictions like this, did you know you can get free esports coin, ESC, a token that was made by Esports Bet? You can get it via the following promotions. If you join their Discord, discord.gg/Esportsbet, they'll give you 10,000 ESC. If you follow them on Twitter at Esportsbet, they'll give you 5,000 ESC. And if you'd like another 5,000 ESC, follow them on Instagram, esportsbet.io. Message the mod mill on the Discord or the customer support on the website. Tell them you did any or all of those, and they will credit your account accordingly with the ESC, and you can get making bets and predictions. It can also be converted into USDT. Check out the website for more details.